Using the attorney as a private lawyer under private international law. I've been studying law for about 30 years as a hobby. I used to believe, as so many so-called patriots have, that the government and attorneys and judges are doing things wrong and violating the law and the Constitution. How ignorant I was. I was like the people of Jerusalem when the prophets were telling the people and the king of Jerusalem that Yahweh loved the people of Judah who were the slaves to the king of Babylon better than Yahweh loved the people of Jerusalem who were fighting against the king of Babylon. The old way of believing that the patriots of Jerusalem were more loved by Yahweh than the slaves of Babylon was before I got a clue and understood the prophets. Then I was a child mind. Now I believe that Yahweh in heaven is bringing my mind more in line as a man. Everything is backwards in the public sector because of the financial reorganization that has been going on since the beginning of America as a nation. The public world, this world, not the private world, the world, is operating just like the scripture states in 1 Corinthians 13, 9 through 12. It says, the reason is that we are losing the gifts of prophecy, speaking different languages and knowledge. This means you. That our ability to prophesy are not perfect. But when perfection comes, the understanding of what is love, is this what motivates you? The things that are not perfect, reasonable, comprehensible, and easily understood in terms of logic will end. When I was a child, I talked like a child. I thought like a child. I refused to grow up intellectually and smell the roses. When I became a man, I learned what is love and practiced it to my fellow man. I stopped those childish ways, believing God's agents are wrong. It is the same with us. Now we see a dim reflection as if we're looking into a mirror, an unclear vision that is backwards. Right is left and left is right. But then we shall see clearly. Now I know only part, but then I will know fully as God has known me. In this pattern, I want to share something with you, for those with vision. Government, attorneys, and judges are not your enemy. You're your own worst enemy because you do not understand the law, which is the commands of Yahweh. A number of people I'm working with have been offered an attorney by the courts in which the straw men of these people have been charged with criminal charges. Now understand, there are Supreme Court rulings that people cannot be put in prison for crimes of the straw man if the people have not been offered legal counsel at criminal proceedings. Therefore, judges almost always offer the charged entity the assistance of legal counsel from a licensed attorney if there is a chance of one of the people being jailed after the conviction of the straw man. Since the government and the public are in a financial reorganization, the public and the government have no commercial energy to execute on any criminal charges. They can make no claim. However, they do have powers in admiralty maritime equity. These powers come from the consent of the governed. This means the people standing behind the charged straw man. These execution powers in equity come from the acts of contempt by people who do not give honor to the public in governmental proceedings. Everyone who goes to jail on sentence is there of his own permission, which comes from contempt or dishonor. When the court offers one of the services of an attorney, this offer is a commercial draft. The court is the drawer, which is the debtor. The offeree, the patriot, is the creditor or the drawee. He is the banker, which can honor the court by acceptance. To fail to accept the offer is to go into dishonor. To go into dishonor is a contempt. This makes the patriot a debtor to the court, which empowers the court by voluntary consent to carry out the execution of a charge that is not supported by the rules of evidence, as if it were a common law conviction. The prison sentence is for contempt of court by dishonor. The length of the sentence is the sentence for the crime if the public and government, under their disability of reorganization, would have the power of common law execution, which they do not, except that you give it to them by your dishonor. Because of the above process, many wise patriots, whose straw men are charged in the public courts, now accept the offer of the public attorney or defender. This creates an honorable relationship between the people and the government, judges, and attorneys. It also makes the patriot the creditor in the situation, if the patriot knows how to act as a creditor. One who has been offered an attorney must accept the offer by written contract. The contract is nothing more than a copy of the written order with an acceptance for value and return for value written across it with the Patriot's signature and the EIN or the exemption identification number written on it with the date. The original signed and merged agreement is placed back into the court's file of the proceeding as evidence. There is now an agreement in fact, and it appears to the public side of the proceeding. After the agreement in fact is established, the Patriot, being the creditor of the agreement, has the capacity to draft the appointed attorney to carry out whatever honorable functions the Patriot has for the attorney to address the substance of the procedure of the charges. This can be done by letter rogatory. A letter rogatory is a private letter from the clerk or official of one court to the clerk or official of another court. Its purpose is to direct the second court to take evidence or testimony to resolve some issue between the two jurisdictions. Get the picture? The government and the judges, attorneys, prosecutors, etc., are members of a foreign government with its foreign court. Their government operates a commercial corporation for profit and gain to make a revenue off of persons by confusing people. It is not the government established under the so-called authority of the people. It has morphed into a foreign military democracy of fictitious persons that is reorganized commercially, bankrupt if it were an individual. As such, the officials in the courts of this foreign government are basically like military officials operating a private, civilian front organization to conceal its true nature. In any military court, there are no entities permitted to practice therein who are not military officers. The judges, prosecutors, attorneys, and other persons in the court are all elected or appointed officials of that quasi-military organization and officers of that foreign court. If you are not an officer, you cannot practice in that foreign court. Why do you, as a patriot, want to go in there and help officiate in that foreign court? You have no standing. If you do go in there, you have given jurisdiction by impersonating a military official of that foreign tribunal, and you are not in Kansas anymore, Dorothy. So, in order to help officiate the charges against the fictitious straw man in their foreign courts, you, as a living soul, write a letter rogatory to the officers of that court to help them officiate the issue. The letter specifically gives assistance to the appointed attorney so it can help them resolve the created dilemma. A letter, such as the following example, establishes duties for the appointed attorney pursuant to your request. Note that the charged entity is a fiction and cannot do anything in his own defense. Also note, the straw man was created by the foreign military venue as their vessel of commerce. You did not create her. They are just testing you. Remember in the movie, The Recruit? Al Pacino's character, who worked for the CIA, stated that everything is a test. Even when you think it is not a test, everything is a test. If you screw up, you are in dishonor and fail the test and go straight to execution or punishment for your dishonor. The foreign court operates under presumptions, assumptions, and conclusions, as do all equity courts. They assume and presume that the living soul is operating the straw man they created for co-business profit and gain in the world commercial markets. If this is true, then the living soul immediately comes under the jurisdiction and venue of these equity courts for their assumed co-business ventures with a person, the straw man, created by their foreign government. It does no good to argue jurisdiction or venue. What part of no jurisdiction or venue applies to their straw man, and you're assumed to presume commercial actions associated therewith? The living soul is not a corporation. The living soul has rights, duties, and remedies that can be brought to the foreign court by appropriate procedures. This must be through one of their officers, the attorney. If you accept his appointment for value and establish the agreement in fact in the court record, then the letter rogatory is the way to draft this officer to make the appointment evidence and procedures visible to the foreign court so that the charges can be accepted and discharged for closure and settlement. Here is a typical type of letter. Letter rogatory. Acceptance of appointment of counsel and request for service in case number such and such and the court name. Dear Sir, please be advised that I humbly accept your appointment as per the court appointment in the state of your state, case number, and the court name. I request that you perform the following on behalf of the undersigned. Number 1, do not argue any facts on the public side of the above matter in behalf of the undersigned. The well-pled facts are all true therein and not disputed. To dispute the facts takes away my ability to dispute the substance of the presumptions in fact. Number 2, represent the undersigned only on the private side of the matter as per my directions herein and any subsequent directions. Number 3, secure for the undersigned a personal appearance bond or personal recognizance bond without public charge and without public fees or cost, so that I can plead to the charging instrument as my remedy in this matter in law, not equity. Number 4, it is my intent to plead guilty to the facts in the charging instrument and not to convert any of the well-pled facts therein, which are all true. Number 5, in return, I request that this court discharge the appearance bond to the undersigned at the termination and closure and settlement of this matter. Number 6, I also request that any and all public or private costs, fees, charges, and restitution that might come out of this court as any orders in this matter be discharged by exchange of my exemption for settlement and closure, which I hereby authorize under exemption number, your Social Security number without dashes. Number 7, I request that any and all charging instruments in this matter affecting the undersigned be accepted by you under your signature for and in the behalf of the undersigned and returned to this court for settlement and closure forthwith. If my signature is required on the acceptance, I request that these instruments be delivered to me forthwith for my signature. I request that you direct that these signed and noted instruments be filed on the public side of the court's record. Number 8, if this court fails to issue an appearance bond to the undersigned under the requested terms of the above paragraph 3, I request that you notify the court publicly of my acceptance of the court's dishonor, and I will presume, based upon that dishonor, that the appearance bond is in fact issued to the undersigned to secure the undersigned's participation in this matter, or that you will direct my own bond be filed publicly in the record based on the court's dishonor. Number 9, I request that you ask the judge in this matter in open court if he has sworn an oath of office, and if he answers in the affirmative, I further request that you ask the judge in this matter to publicly take judicial notice of the oath of office of the judge in this matter to provide me a remedy in law. Number 10, attached hereto is an affidavit of negative averment executed by the undersigned. I request that you forthwith cause this original affidavit to be filed into this court on the public side of the record with the acceptance for value and returns for value discussed in paragraph 7, so that the court will have the benefit of the old common law pleading of confession and avoidance. Black's Law 8th edition. Confession and avoidance. Confession and avoidance. A plea in which a defendant admits allegations, but pleads additional facts that deprive the admitted facts of an adverse legal effect. For example, a plea of contributory negligence, before the advent of comparative negligence, was a confession and avoidance. Also termed avoidance, plea in confession and avoidance, plea of confession and avoidance. Case pending 130, Corpus Juris Secundii, pleading, subsection 197. Number 11, I request that you direct the court to take mandatory judicial notice of the instruments tendered for public filing in the court in paragraphs 7 and 10 herein, and to enter these filings into evidence at an oral hearing in behalf of the undersigned. Number 12, I request that you direct the court to take mandatory judicial notice of the documents the state acquired from, and then you list any evidence that the state might have in its possession that provides true facts to the proceedings to rebut any assumptions, presumptions, or conclusions in the charging instruments. Number 13, I do not expect your kind services be provided without consideration. Please provide me an invoice so that I may accept and return said invoice for value, and direct that the exemption of the straw man be used as consideration in exchange for these services. Number 14, I request that any of the service that you perform for the undersigned in this matter be approved by the undersigned before said performance be undertaken. With sincerest appreciation, Mary Jane Doe, offender and agent for the defendant. Signed and dated. Okay, note, all typing within the brackets of the previous 2 pages require material fact input to complete this instrument before signature and filing or service upon Mary Jane Doe's attorney. Note that with the above letter rogatory, you are sending the original to the appointed attorney for the straw man, but there are copies going to the clerk, the judge, and the prosecuting attorney. There's a reason for this. The proper pleading is a confession and avoidance. This is an old common law pleading. The confession is essentially the acceptance for value and return for value. The avoidance is the evidence in fact that your new attorney buddy will put before the court to avoid the assumptions and presumptions and conclusions of law and fact upon which the equity court is relying in good faith, along with your ignorance, to find your straw man guilty of the charges. Time does not permit a complete explanation of this process here, but you can find it in Creditors and Their Bonds. The copies of the letter rogatory to the judge, prosecuting attorney, and clerk may be sent by proof of mailing from the post office or certified mail so that receipt by them can be brought forth as evidence in fact if necessary. If the appointed attorney carries out the draft request of the letter rogatory, he has indeed carried out his duties for which he is appointed officer of the court. If he does not carry out his duties, then the clerk, the judge, and the prosecutor are all witnesses that he is incompetent and violated all his oaths and duties for which he joined the bar, the foreign court officers roster. If the appointed attorney violates his oaths and duties, he can be made liable for the losses and debts of the living soul by way of his dishonor of your draft request. If the living soul is punished for charges to which the attorney did not bring an adequate and substantive defense as per the living soul's request. Furthermore, the clerk, the judge, and the prosecuting attorney have all taken oaths to make sure that the attorney does his job. Now that they are told what his job is, they had better see that he does it, or else they are in violation of their oaths of office to their foreign courts. The reason that most attorneys say that any correspondence between them and their clients is confidential is so that the attorney can help conceal the nature of the test going on here. The letter rogatory is a private letter, but it is not a secret letter. Romans 13 said it best. Those who do right do not have to fear the rulers. Only those who do wrong fear them. Do you want to be unafraid of the rulers? Then do what is right, and they will praise you in private, not public. The ruler is God's servant to help you. But if you do wrong, then be afraid. He has the power to punish. He is God's servant to punish those who do wrong. So you must yield to the government, not only because you might be punished, but because you know it is right. If this article is too much meat, do not write to me and discuss the fact that you are only interested in milk. You need to pray on the options that you have been given to you. If the attorney to you have extended the draft does not carry it out, in fact, before the court, it does not mean that the court and the attorney in private are not carrying out your wishes, if in fact you can remain in honor to them in the court. You have turned the attorney into a lawyer under private international law. I've seen it work many times with incredible results. May Yahweh bless you abundantly. I have used a letter rogatory before myself. I can verify its effectiveness and how they conceal things behind it. The one I actually used was in Creditors and Their Bonds, which is very similar to the one that is in this recording. I want to pause right here and say that the reason a lot of people who get involved with these processes say things don't work is, number one, they never reveal to you their fear. They are not readers. They don't understand what they're doing. They don't have the perception to see what is going on. They look at everything on their face. When somebody tells them they're not going to do something, they just accept it. They don't understand that it's a test, the test that's going on. And that is why you see 98% of the people fail with all these processes, discharging debt or anything like that. These people are not spiritually perceptive to see what's going on. They don't understand exactly what they're dealing with, that there's a language of silence that is going on, and they just pay attention to what's right in front of their face. And that is why they're unsuccessful, and a lot of them will continue to be unsuccessful. Look at the number of people who don't read any of these documents I'm putting forth for you. Hell, I'm reading them now, and people still aren't reading them or listening to them in very small quantities. And that is that's why I'm doing this also, just to show you that people will not read. We are dealing with a functionally illiterate society. And if you're one of the individuals who is watching this program, I'm talking about you. If you're not taking the time to look, I have people that want to get consultations to me for me and things like that. And most of the things that they're going to ask me is already provided for them in a document, but they're not going to read it. I'm going to continue to keep putting out audios on all the documents that I think that are very important that people should take the time to read and understand. People are not in a learning mode anymore. They just want a remedy. You're not getting any remedy if you don't. There's nothing for you if you wish to remain in ignorance. You need to go and get a job and continue to do what you're doing and leave this venue. This venue is not for you if you are not the type of individual that's going to read and is going to commit yourself and dedicate yourself to learning this material. It's not for you. You can call me. I'm not doing any paperwork for you. Okay. I'm not answering any tax questions for you. I'm not doing any of those things. You're wasting your time. SPC University is about learning. It's not about quick fix. So if you got a membership, cancel your membership and go somewhere else, because it's not what we're doing over here. Peace to the gods. If you want to continue to hear some of these audios, I suggest that you donate. I'm not going to do something like creditors and their bonds or anything if people won't donate. If you want to donate, there's a donate button at the bottom. If I get enough donations for it, I'll do a long one. The long ones are very, very involved and take a lot of time and energy to put out. So if somebody wants to donate for that, I don't have a problem with that. If everybody who watched this video donated $1, that would suffice. You can't even get people to donate $1. And that's something else. If you're not giving anything, why are you in some sort of expectation of receiving something? Not from me necessarily, but from the universe in general. Peace to all the gods and goddesses. I'll see you on the next video.